Welcome to the Fearless Females Voice podcast, where women's stories and experiences are shared in order to empower and inspire others. Before we begin the podcast, I want you to check out my free Stuck to Success quiz, which will help you discover why you're stuck, provide clarity on your next steps, and give you an immediate action plan. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete, and you can find it on my website, www.fearlessfemales.me. On this episode, I am joined by Suman Randhawa, who is a sales strategist and business mentor. Suman has over 25 years of corporate experience working with global brands and has led award-winning sales teams. She recently resigned her job after finding there to be more to life and now runs her own business helping female entrepreneurs to transform their businesses. Suman has a very positive outlook in life and has had experiences which have shaped her thinking and led her on a self-discovery journey. As time has gone on, she has been doing more work on herself and understanding her purpose. On this episode, she shares her career journey, the life-changing moment which made her review everything around her, and more about her passion for supporting women in business. Suman has an inspiring story of which I really resonated with, so I know you're going to love the listen. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. It was really nice of you to reach out, and it was great hearing more about what you do, and I'm really intrigued to know more from what I've heard so far. So let's start with, what does being a fearless female mean to you?
Oh, I was so looking forward to this question. So I had to think about this when I also would like to say thank you so much for responding to my reach out. I think for me, a fearless female it's about recognizing that fearlessness is within you. For me, the change happened when I stopped looking for gratification from other people, and I recognized that the only person who could make any of the changes was me. So I think fearlessness for me was very much about recognizing that life is for living, life is short, and I don't want to live in regret. And I'm at quite a key landmark age, and I feel very, very strongly that I don't want to live in regret.
Amazing. And you said you're at a landmark age, but throughout your life, have you ever had any regrets?
Lots. Do I believe in the word regrets? I don't think I've had regrets. I just think particularly, growing up, I mean, I'm a child of the 70s, I turned 50 in 3 months. And I think sometimes even that shift from the 70s to the 80s was quite a lot. I'm the eldest by 8 years. And I think when you are the first child of the first generation immigrants, I think the expectations can be quite different. We also grew up in a really different time. I mean, my peers were not the same as me. So actually, that was something that I went through. In terms of, do I have any regrets? Actually, no, because I feel like life is exactly where it's meant to be. Does my life match where I thought my life would be? 100% no, it doesn't. There have been times in my life where I've wondered what my purpose is, but I think I'm clear what my purpose is. And I think that's really important to know and to hear, I hope, from a woman who feels 25, hopefully looks maybe 30, 35, but is going to turn 50. One of the things that I would say is, honestly, the best is to come. The strength of mind and the strength of confidence that you feel as you become an older woman is a really special feeling. It's not one I'd encountered in any other age group. And it's about just being okay with how life decided to turn out for you.
I love that. And it's interesting you said about the older you get, because from when I was when I was 20 to now when I'm 31, I've grown so much through all the experiences that I've had. I'm a completely, well, I wouldn't say completely different, but I think differently, I act differently, and I've just evolved and I've become myself. So when you say that, I'm quite interested to know what the next 10 or 20 years are going to have in store for me, because I feel like there's still growth for me to have.
Yeah. And, I kind of, age, it is a number, because I think, is it the Prime Minister of New Zealand is proof that age is definitely just a number. I mean, she's world renowned for being such an incredible Prime Minister. And then actually Kamala Harris, 56 when she got the biggest job of her career. For me, I think that says a lot, that age is definitely a number. But what I think changes you is your life experiences. And I guess for me, the last few years was completely not something I ever expected to happen. I think I've shared before, my father passed away. And it sounds crazy, but I just didn't picture that was going to happen now or yet. And it makes you just relook at life. And actually, there's loads of landmark moments that made me look at life. But I think where I am right now and where I look at life right now, that was the last huge impact. In fact, I wouldn't even say the last. I think it will, forever from this point, that moment will be a real moment of shift and change for sure.
And we talked a bit about regrets there as well. And you said that in the end, you didn't actually have any regrets, because that's all helped you get to where you are today. Because someone once asked me, it's quite recently as well, if there was one thing that you could change in the past or in your life, like in the past, what would that be? And I had to think about that question. I was thinking, there's actually nothing, because every single decision I made, whether it was a bad decision or a good decision, has led me to where I am today. So actually, if one thing had changed there, that would have just taken me down a completely different path. And I'm very grateful for where I am today with everything that I have done. So finding your purpose as well is something that's very interesting topic. These days, women and men, people in general, feel like they need to live by their purpose. They need to find their purpose, and they can get a bit frustrated when they don't always see it from a young age. For me, I feel like it's something that you see more of as you grow older. It's not even about age. It's about getting to know yourself and exactly what it is that you want. So you said you found it quite recently. What is it that you did to find that purpose, and what was life like before then?
So I think for me, it wasn't recognizing that I was looking for something. So I'd had a very successful career on paper, worked for some of the biggest brands, worked at a really senior level, but something was just not quite aligned for me. And I'm very much about everything happens for a reason. So that's another reason why I don't totally believe in regret, because if I think about the fact I haven't had children, now that wasn't planned, but I reckon I'm a pretty amazing mussy, which obviously means auntie. Would I have been able to give that love? Would I have been able to do the amount of volunteering I'm doing? Would I be able to be running my own business? Maybe not. So I think everything happened for a reason. But for me, something was missing within the corporate world. And I'm not going to put this blame on anybody else, because I think you always have to look at yourself, but I felt like I kept hitting a ceiling, and that had been happening for a while. So I was doing a really good job, but I wasn't getting the opportunities that I was going for. Yet on paper, everyone's like, wow, I can't believe you work there. You look after this amazing, huge team. You're really successful in what you do. But I personally, for me, it's about balance. It's about a balance sheet. So what is it that makes you feel good? What are the things that you have to do? And what are the things that don't feel right? And I ended up doing a marketing diploma when I was in my 40s. And it was something I'd wanted to do for a really long time. But I started working with some really amazing young people on my team who were straight out of university. And I just thought, you know what, I need to bring my experience up to date. And being on this course with people who were half my age was, one, incredibly inspiring, because I could see how much they brought, but I recognized I brought something quite different. And what I brought that was very different was obviously life and work experience. But also, little did I know that actually the real purpose of doing that course, so in order to do a diploma alongside a full-time job, alongside running a home, I had to be so disciplined. My social life had to go to one side. It reminded me of how single-minded I am when I'm focused. It reminded me of how tenacious I am. And it also reminded me how good I was at what I was learning. Now, a year later, my father was to become unwell and was to pass away. Had I not learned that discipline the year before, I don't know that I would have been able to be the person that I needed to be at a time that was really, really key. And I think that's what I talk about with lessons and life shifts. I feel like that was the beginning. At the time, I thought it was just to upskill myself, but I now believe it was to teach me about something else.
Can you tell me more about what you mean by the discipline that you learned there? What is it that you exactly got from that experience?
So for me, I do know this about myself, that when I do something, I do it 100%. But I remember when I signed up to the diploma, they said to me, oh, it will be about 10 hours a week. Well, obviously they didn't know me personally. And, I'm very thorough. I like to really go through things. And my way of learning is I will go over things again and again and again. And actually, this is feedback that I get from my clients, is the level of preparation that I will do. And, if you could see me now, I'm surrounded by pieces of paper in preparation for today. So I think for me, it was that discipline of, I work long hours. As I said, I ran a home. I have responsibilities. I have friendships and um, family and people and relationships that I needed to uphold. So being able to fit everything in required real discipline. So I think that's what I meant by the discipline, which was that I literally had to compartmentalize, and it would be half an hour before I had to leave for work if I could fit in some time, and so on. I just recognized and realized that that was quite a special skill that I had, and I'd probably forgotten it because I'd been so caught up in the corporate world.
And when you're going for something or doing something that you really want as well, that you enjoy and you want to do this, you'll make it happen. I hear
Totally.
people giving me excuses of, oh, I haven't got time. Whenever I hear that, and don't get me wrong, I've used that as well. But when I hear that, and I have to stop myself as well when I say that, it's actually just that you're not prioritizing that, whatever that is. It's not that you don't
Yeah.
have the time. It's just that you're not prioritizing it. So you're able to then juggle your career with this as well. It's huge. Like it's a lot of stuff that you had going on then. And with your
Yeah.
career, you mentioned that you hit a ceiling. This is something that I've experienced as well. I think that many women have experienced this. Can you tell me more about how that felt for you? That you were going for opportunities, you weren't always getting them, even though you were putting in the hours, the work, and everything that came with that.
Yeah, it was really interesting because, as I said, I'd had a really successful career for 18 years. So I did a career pivot after 18 years. I worked within the world of advertising. I got up to commercial director level, but I felt like I was ready for something different. The universe was obviously listening to me because I got made redundant at the age of 40, which was a huge shock, huge knock on my confidence. And I ended up working directly for a brand. So it was a bit of a career shift, but I was able to use transferable skills. However, I recognized that probably the ideal role was something in between the two. So I had skill sets on both sides, but this ideal role, I was searching for it. And I was going for opportunities, and I just felt like the truth was that I probably didn't know what I was looking for. So every time an opportunity came up, I was probably just moving for the opportunity. And actually, if I look back at it, perhaps at the time, the recruiter or the employer, and these were all internal moves, maybe they recognized that I myself didn't 100% know what I was looking for. So I think sometimes when that happens, it can sometimes be that obviously you need to convey in a different way what experience and what value you add. But I think it also can sometimes be the energy that we carry. And it was really interesting to me because actually one of the things that I say is, and firstly, I must say, I know that COVID for so many people was a really traumatic experience. I appreciate that lots of people suffered a lot of loss as well as trauma. For me personally, that, on the back of what had been the worst year of my life, which was 2019 when my father passed away, for me, 2020 was an opportunity to stop. And I honestly say that lockdown probably saved me and lockdown made me. But what happened in that time is I was able to reflect on things in a different way. And one of the big realizations that I had that started to come from some volunteering that I was doing was that I realized that when you're looking for an opportunity, actually, when you're looking to that person to give you the opportunity, it's a completely different mind shift to when you say, I get something from the value that I add. And it's actually just shifting the language, shifting the position, shifting thinking that it's somebody else's fault. Actually, it's nobody's responsibility. The responsibility is my own. So what I did realize is that perhaps I was looking for gratification in the wrong places.
And where did you then look?
Yeah, so it was, I did the diploma, as I said, which I absolutely loved, but then also work had paid for half of it. I was ready at the end of the year. I was like, right, okay, I'm ready. Where's that next opportunity? And it wasn't coming. And same time, my dad was unwell. So obviously that was a bit of a pause for me in 2019. But actually, because of this shift in me and how I was thinking, I started volunteering and I started helping primary age children with their reading. And I was fitting it in before work. And whereas before I'd always thought volunteering was something that I just didn't have time for, my diploma alongside a full-time job made me realize that I have got time, just as you said, but it was about doing something that I loved. And that feeling of helping those children and watching their confidence over the weeks as they they'd go from being really shy, and I'm thinking, wow, this child's placing their trust in me. I'm sat in a room with them, they don't know me. How intimidating it must be for them. But over the weeks, watching our relationship grow, watching their reading flourish, and around the same time, I decided that I wanted to be a school governor. So I applied to be a non-parent school governor. Everybody else on the board was accountants, doctors, lawyers. There was little old me, and I realized that I offered something a little bit different. And my father was a secondary school teacher, and for me, I just felt like it was that not only was I giving back, not only was I doing something that I love, which is I love watching people progress, it was giving me that connection back to my father. And so for me, it was really about doing something that kind of gives back to you as well. And it really feels like you're doing something that makes you feel good, because particularly children, you're watching children progress. And I think that's where my business idea started, because I started to realize how great it felt and how much it was using my everyday skills.
So you've touched on this business idea of yours, and I know we've spoken about it before as well. So tell me, what is this business idea and what is it that you do with that right now?
Yeah, so one of the kind of a few things happened over lockdown for me. And one of the things that happened, so this isn't my business, but one of the things that happened was I set up a community platform across the social media channels where basically it was tips and advice. And it came from the fact that at work with my team, Friday would normally be Suman Suggests. What suggestions has Suman got of what we should do and what we should use? Now, the secret there wasn't my ideas. The secret was my audience. I had a captive audience that wanted to listen to me. So when lockdown happened, I have absolutely no idea how the moment came, but I created this platform. I had this really captive audience. Before I knew it, I had hundreds and hundreds of people in a Facebook group. I had an Instagram account that was growing. And I had all of these people engaging and connecting with me. And people started to ask me for advice because they saw me as this digital expert. And yes, of course, I did have that experience. I've got a sales and marketing background as well. But digital was something that was just a passion that happened during lockdown. But it was an accident. It was just one of those things that people started coming to me to ask for guidance and advice. And I had also been working with a coach who had been telling me for the last year, I think you'd be amazing in your own business, working with entrepreneurs. And I kind of ignored it. But again, it was just like an epiphany moment that started slowly, and then it started to build up more and more traction. And I created a business, and my business is helping female entrepreneurs with service-based businesses in their sales, their strategy. And the big focus for me is all around story selling, which is how do you create a story that sells? How do you engage, build authority, build trust across all of your platforms, and ultimately have a business plan that helps you and your business progress? So that's ultimately what I do. I'm very proud to sit here and say that that is something that I do. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth.
Amazing. Isn't it interesting how you find these things as you go along? I always say when you may not even have the idea or the vision, but as you go on in life and you take these risks, or you have an opportunity and think, actually, why not? Let me go for that. Or just take a step forward in a different direction outside of your comfort zone. That's when the best things happen, because eventually the path will just become so clear. So from you starting this one Instagram account and Facebook group, it's then grown into you now running a business and helping and supporting female entrepreneurs, which I think is incredible.
Thank you. And actually, you've just said that there. It's about fearlessness. And actually, I wouldn't say that I'm a particularly risky person, but a bit like what you said about time, it doesn't feel like a risk when it's your passion and it's what you are naturally aligned with. Dharma is a big word. Would I actually use that word? But actually, I do feel like this was my calling. I feel like this was always going to happen. The bit that is exciting and the bit, I guess, that is a reason I like to share my story is I had no idea. If you had even spoken to me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. And that's what excites me is the fact that if you believe and if you are open to opportunities, anything is possible and everybody will have their moment.
I love that. And I completely agree with that. And how did it feel when you had that aha moment that this is it? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember so many aha moments. And, I really hope that I'm able to carry and remember these moments. For me, after my dad passed away, it was a very, very dark time for me. I was very depressed. I felt very angry. I think it was probably shock as well. Sounds crazy, but I just didn't. It was the one thing I never pictured, I guess. I pictured him as a little old man. And he got to 75, which I now appreciate and recognize that we were very lucky, but just at the time it didn't feel lucky. And I remember I went to India 6 months afterwards as there were things to sort out. And I went to the Golden Temple, which was somewhere that was, really precious, really special to my dad. And I'd been to India before, not many times, but I'd been a few times. But that day we went to the Golden Temple and I'm even getting goosebumps talking about it now. I felt something shift, and I felt this cloud lift. And I remember walking back to my parents' apartment. I remember it was a really sunny day, and it was just like this epiphany moment. I just felt like something was going to change. I got back and I started Googling the life coach. And although that was, over a year before I was to embark, about 15 months before I was to embark on my journey, it was the beginning of the change that was going to happen. And it was an incredible moment, because it's like, it's like a thunderball, a fireball. It just rolls, one thing rolls into the other. And then it was the people that come into your path. And for me, I've been locked down, has got me back on social media. I wasn't even on Instagram a year ago, or 14, 15 months ago, but it's all the people that I've met, how inspired I became by them. And then here we are sat here today. And I'm obviously kind of sharing with you my story and why I want to help female entrepreneurs. It's because I feel like it's my calling to help women in their businesses find their true calling by having a business that is successful and has structure.
I love that. And so you've been doing this for just over a year, you said, with the business?
Just over a year, yeah.
And yet you're still working in your corporate job as well, is that right?
Yes, although I am going to be leaving in just a number of weeks. So it's literally the last few weeks before I leave. So I'm really, really excited about being able to kind of go full steam ahead with this.
And how did you make that decision? Because I've also done something similar. I was a bit younger in my career, so I hadn't worked as long, but for me, I knew that this was my calling. So I was like, right, I want to do the same. I want to help women. I want to empower women. I want to work with women. And for me, that was my passion, my calling. So I decided to take a risk, I guess, or even just embrace an opportunity for me. So how was that for you?
You know, it wasn't like anything I've ever felt before. There was no other choice. It had to happen. I knew that this was what I had to do. And I say that as a positive thing because I now think of all the times before where I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to make this change or if I want to move to that role or if this opportunity came up. I didn't feel like that. I still have it in my phone, a message I sent between me and a connection that I had made. And I said to her, I want to write this down because I want the universe to hear me. Mark my words, by the end of this year, I will be doing this full time. And I just knew it. It just felt like this was my calling. This was my passion. I love it. It's something that I'm good at. So it didn't feel like it was a choice. It just felt like it was something that had to happen.
And throughout your career, I think you said it was 18 years that you've worked. Did you ever have that passion moment with what you were doing? Or is it just
Yeah,
more so now?
loads.
Yeah.
Loads. So it was 18 years in my first career, and then I did a career pivot, and then it's been 9 years in my last 9 years, which has been very much about client development of top end clients. Yes, there's loads of things I've loved about my role, absolutely loads, and all of that experience is what brings me here. So it would it really would be untrue to say that I haven't loved working for people. But I think what it was for me, it was just wanting to explore. Because I think the thing when you work is you can be put into a box. This is your role, this is what you do, and this is where you fit. And I just, for a number of years now, felt I had so much more to give. And I think for me, it was that frustration of feeling like, right, I'm not getting to do this. Thinking, okay, well, if you're not getting to do it there, then you have two choices. You put up with it and you make it work for you, or you go and you work out what it is that you need to do.
It's so interesting that you put it that way, that you gave yourself initially kind of like an ultimatum, like I either stick with it or I go and find something different. Because I hear women tell me so much, and I was in this position as well, that I don't like what I do, or sometimes to the extent of I hate what I do. I don't want to wake up and go to work. I don't even want to do this work. And I just think, wow, like this is a moment for you to take control and understand what it is that you do want to do. And it's not always as clear cut as that. There's so many things that have an impact here, such as living. Like we all need to have have a job even to live, or it could be that you're tied to a certain location or a certain situation. And I completely get that, but it's really nice and interesting that you were thinking, these are my options. This is what I can and cannot do. Because I was in a very similar situation where I was also thinking it's either this or this. But I was so afraid of quitting. I was so afraid of letting go of my career that I'd went to university for and built my whole life around and was very comfortable in, to not really knowing what I was going to do. So it's good that you've got that step of what you're going to do next. But was there any fear involved in making that decision?
I had never, ever considered that I would leave to set up my own business before. So that only happened because I felt a calling and a passion, and I feel like I have found what I was meant to do. So for me, I definitely would never, ever have left if I didn't have an idea. I'm not financially in a position to be able to do that. But I think for me, probably what I realized is it wasn't as obvious as me thinking to myself, right, you've got two choices, because I didn't necessarily know what the other choice was. But I guess what the course, the volunteering, I kind of describe it as I followed my nose. I just followed something that was making me feel good. And I guess that's more what it was about. So when people say that they're not sure, or they're doing a career or a role they're not passionate about, I think it's kind of pinpointing what is it that you don't feel passionate about, and seeing if you can find something that gives you passion outside of work. Because like you said, we all do need to work, and also the grass isn't always greener, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to go and face a different issue somewhere else. But actually, it was the volunteering was definitely the start of it. And then during lockdown, building that community platform and really enjoying what I was doing. So I think for me, by the time I finally made the decision, no, there's no fear, because if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you get to the point where you're still fearful, it's possibly not right for you. So for me, I need to be, and I am 100% sure that this is the right thing to do.
Amazing. I love that. So it's really interesting because I think, as I said, like for you, it's really good that you had an idea or you had something going on. For me, I was like, I haven't got a clue what I want to do next. I was like, I just want to get out of this job and then just take a bit of a break and just see how things go. So yeah, for me, I was just like really, just didn't really know what to expect. But when I quit, it was like a whole weight had been lifted off my shoulders and I felt so free. That's the most freedom I'd experienced in a very long time. So that was a really nice experience for me.
What's really interesting with that actually is it's one of the things that I've written about and spoken about a lot, kind of within my own blog. And actually, I think that creatively I was stifled because I wasn't doing anything that was stimulating me, possibly outside of my day job. I probably creatively was not at my optimum. And I think when you get to that point for an individual, because I guess not everybody is in a position to be able to just leave. I definitely never was. Actually, it was allowing myself to be more creative. That is probably where the best ideas have come from. And I remember actually when I resigned, my boss said to me, "But you've been on fire. Like you've been amazing." Like, so he was obviously really shocked that I was leaving. And I said, "Yeah, it's probably because I have been working on myself and on my self-development. And what's come from it again is this, it's almost like I want to wave this flag at everyone and say it's never too late to have a good idea. So don't, because I didn't think I had any good ideas. I thought creatively that was it. I was done. And actually it was only by doing something differently and doing something different that the creativity started to come out."
Because you said that you felt quite blocked in what you were doing. You didn't have the
Really
flexibility or
blocked.
so you weren't just able to kind of be unleashed and explore your creativity because it was always, and that tends to happen in many corporate jobs as well. It's what I found with my experiences, that they tie you to this role, to this activity. And when I wanted to explore further and try different things, it didn't quite work, which is why I also started a platform before I quit as well, just to kind of dabble in my creativity a little bit. And I loved it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that. So tell me, what's next for you then? What's next for your business?
So, I mean, really, for me now, it is just, there's three things that you have to do. You've got to build your credibility. You've got to build a connection. I think I've been networking and building a fantastic connection over the last year, building credibility within a community. But now for me it's really getting my face out there, and doing this as something that is not a hobby. This is my purpose. This is my passion. So for me, next, I mean, I'm really, really excited about 2022. I turned 50 in January. It's it's a very, very exciting time ahead of me, and I embrace it with open arms. I'm so ready for what the future holds for me, and I can't wait to help more people progress and really find what it is that is going to give them that satisfaction in day-to-day life and help them earn the income that they want to earn.
I love that. And what are your plans for your 50th birthday?
So, just a little going to the Maldives, nothing big. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I knew it. I went and I was very fortunate enough to go in 2018. And I hadn't even landed back when I was like, right, I'm going to start saving up again. So that's where I'm going to be. I will be turning 50 in the Maldives. So it might be a little bit of work to do on the bikini body before I get there, but that's definitely where I'm going to be.
Oh, that's amazing. That sounds so, so nice. And in terms of business, you said you've got some big plans for next year. Where do you see this going?
So I think for me, where I see it going is really just scaling. For me, my target is female entrepreneurs with premium price service-based businesses. But I also think going into the corporate world with all of the experience that I've got, I can probably add real value to teams as well. one of the pictures, if I kind of look at my vision board in front of me, I've got two vision boards, personal and business. Personal is fearlessness. My goodness, personal is fearless. And one of the pictures on there is a girl that is being interviewed. Wow. And I know, right?
We need to talk about this more. So when we were having a conversation before this podcast, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned this on your vision board. And when you said that, I was like, wow. So she had was it fearlessness on your vision board, but I didn't know about the girl being interviewed.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it now, and there's on the top is a woman talking to an audience. That's one of the pictures at the top. And bearing in mind, this is my personal vision board. And then one of the pictures bottom right is a woman who is talking to camera and being interviewed. So yeah, I hadn't realized that before. Wow.
Wow. There you go. It just goes to show everything that, and that's your vision board for just this year?
I literally did this in January this year. And I think for me, the reason I probably put those pictures on there is I guess particularly through my volunteering and through my platform and from working with other women, I really, really wanted to do that on a bigger scale and to be able to support and influence a wider group of people. And I guess that's where I came from. And actually, we all have different strengths. And one of the things that I've always loved, you know, I have a long career in leading sales teams, is actually standing on a stage, presenting or talking was something that I'd always loved doing. So yeah, how interesting that that's on my vision board.
And that's all personal as well. So what about the business side of things?
So let me look at the business one. So the business one has got lots of pictures of me in really beautiful holiday places. So the word for my business one was invaluable. So that was the word on my business one. And it's, again, me with lots of people, me living a lifestyle which allows me more freedom, me looking strong, me spending more time with the people that I love, me laughing more. So, you know, it's less, you know, it's less about seeing myself living in a big old house and driving an expensive car, although of course those things would both be very nice. Actually, it's more just about the purpose of life and the lifestyle that I want to live. I definitely want more laughter, more living, and less being constrained by times and hours.
Amazing. And I love what you've got on the vision board. I used to do vision boards, but I didn't do one this year. So I think I'm going to pick up with that and do one for next year at the start of the year. I think it's a really interesting thing to do. I've had many people have benefited from it, and it's just something that you see every day. So I think the position that you've got it in is really, really good as well. So you're just looking at it now.
I am. I'm looking at them. And like I said, I've never done a vision board before, but I remember when I did it, I loved it. I loved pulling out the pictures. And it's, you know, it's something that's so personal. And in true Suman style, I laminated them as only I would, and then stuck them up on my wall. And yeah, it's been something that I've daily looked at. And actually, you know, you're talking about what are my plans. I've just setting up my office up here as my working space. And it just, it feels incredibly exciting.
It should be. It's just an exciting time right now, isn't it? Especially when you're starting something, and also that you're leaving your career. So you're going into this full time.
I am.
So just to summarize, if I was to ask you, over your last nearly 50 years, what has been your overall growth journey? How would you describe it?
So my journey has probably been like most people's journeys in life. If you looked at it as a visual representation, it might look like a bit of a bumpy road. But I think my journey so far is one of recognizing, being open to the fact that you never know it all. That would probably be what my sentence would be, is that you're never too old to stop learning, whatever age you are. And I really hope that that's something that I continue to carry into the next 20 and 30 years ahead of me, because I feel like I'm just at my prime. Different people hit their prime at different ages. And certainly, you know, anybody who's 20 or 30, you don't necessarily have to wait until then. You definitely might hit it well before me. But for me, I just feel like my openness to learning is what has led to growth. So that is what I would say that my journey is. My journey is exactly how it was meant to be.
Wow. I love it. With no regrets, everything that's happened has got you to where you are now. And
yeah.
I
mean, no regrets is, of course, there's regrets. So, there's the people you love, you wish they were here, things you could have said, things you could have done. But ultimately, that's the one thing that we all share in common is that everybody is going to go at some time. And I just think the spiritual journey for me is what has really helped me get through these last couple of years, and believing that actually this was exactly as it was meant to be, and to learn from it. So yeah, I think that's how I visualize my path of so far. I feel really old when you say 50, but yeah, it's a lot of years.
It is, but it sounds like you've accomplished so much in that time. And you're right in saying there isn't a dedicated time to when you should be knowing what you want to do next or finding your purpose. And I've had people on the podcast who have said that they found it when they were 15, 16 and pursued that. I've had people who were a bit older and said we found it when we were in our 50s, or even I've had an older lady who's in her 60s. And there is no right or wrong. And it's that, I feel like it's that thing around not chasing it either. It will come. There's just a time where it will just come and everything will fall into a place. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. It just almost fits. Everything fits. And it sounds like everything's fit for you.
Yeah. And, you will, like the question of how did you know that this was the thing to do? And when you know, and it is just a feeling. And I would say that it's just about exploring. If you're not feeling passion, then it might be that it's not the right time for you. And particularly, people who are bringing up young families, like, you don't have time to fit everything in. But when that moment does come, follow your nose, look at the opportunities that are out there and engage a network. And actually, I think the value of the tribe that you are with, the value of the network of men and women that are around you is really, really important as well. Because if you're not where you want to be, maybe that shift in who's around you could also influence the changes that are to happen, or you could be the influence to the change that happens for people around you.
That's such a valid point as well, isn't it? I do feel like that. I completely agree with that as well. So thank you so much, Suman, for joining me on this podcast. It was such a pleasure to speak to you and hear more about your story, what you've been up to, and what future plans you have as well.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. And, I think the work you do is incredible. And to be on this platform where I've listened to so many other inspiring women is really, I'm very honored to be here. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Fearless Females Voice podcast. Don't forget, I have a free quiz for you which will help you discover how fearless you are. It identifies where you're being held back in life and will give you some tips at the end on how to improve your mindset and confidence so you are living your best life. You can take the free quiz on my website, www.fearlessfemales.me. Also, I'd love for you to do me a massive favor. If you enjoyed the podcast, then be sure to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you.